And now, a message from Captain America.
Hi kids, I'm Captain America. And today, I'm here to remind you that the word Antifa means anti-fascist. And being anti-fascist means punching Nazis in the f***ing face. And do you know who loves punching Nazis in the f***ing face? That's right, this guy. So, unless you think I'm a terrorist, you should stop calling Antifa one. I honestly can't believe I'm having to explain this to you, but here we are. Go vote.
Okay. I don't know what that was. Anyways, welcome back to Geek Life. We are talking about our deep dive now. We're moving into free-to-play. So free-to-play games are no longer a thing of fantasy. Back in the early days of gaming, the only free-to-play games that you could access were crappy online games that you would play on Flash Player, but times have changed. Games like Warframe, League of Legends, Fortnite, Rocket League all work entirely off a free-to-play model. In fact, over the past 10 to 12 years, games have revolutionized the way they make money off you. With pay-to-play, pay-to-win, loot boxes, microtransactions, and other nuanced ways to profit off gamers on the rise, we thought we would spend some time this deep dive discussing the implications of it. Tonight, we're going to talk about my two favorite conversation topics, video games and why capitalism sucks. So first off, let's start off with some definitions. First off, Kev, what is pay to play and what is pay to win? And what's the differences between them?
Pay to play is essentially it's a free game. At least that's how they advertise it. It's free. And then anything else that you want that is an add-on, quote unquote add-on, which is usually kind of essential to the game, is you have to pay for. Pay to win is essentially the same model, but more egregious because in a game which I'll touch on more later on in the show, like NBA 2K, that is 1,000% pay to win.
So that's the difference between just pay to play and pay to win. Are either models, in your opinion, fair, Kevin? Come on, this is a toss-up question, man.
No. I think they're a little gross to me because it's like I just imagine an executive in a tie like dangling $1 from like, come on, you want to play, you want to compete, don't you? You want to be like your friends, don't you? And then I'm like, no, and they're like, just give it here, just take my money, shit.
Yeah, for real. It's free to play is definitely not a preferred model by any means, and pay to win is pretty much unplayable in my opinion. Brahman, in your opinion, all right, what are the problems with these models? Are there any advantages to pay to play or pay to win?
No, I don't think there are any clear advantages, except in the eyes of the game maker and just wanting to make money that way. I think that. Especially if you're putting an initial amount into a game, to be expected to invest even more in that is really slimy, in my opinion. I think that you should sell us a complete game to start with and pay maybe that the pay to play, I can kind of just that's kind of gross. But when it comes to the pay to win, I think that's completely unacceptable. To be able to just pay for a leg up on your components that's not what gaming's about. It's really just sick in my,
Yeah, it turns competitions into a capitalism contest,
Mm-hmm.
Who can afford to win? Who can afford to play the best, and not who has any kind of talent. And I think
playing games to escape real life, not be insulted by.
Yeah. And I understand maybe you want to pay for I used to play a lot of League of Legends, and I might have paid for a couple cool skins because I didn't want to put the time in, earning the points for it. I'm I want to look cool, but that doesn't affect how you play. That doesn't affect your skill level. It's just being a little flossy.
And to be fair, there are paid to. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Oh no, it's just cosmetic stuff.
Right, and I think that there are games that work entirely on free-to-play models that are they use cosmetic boosts like that sell content that is not necessarily directly related to gameplay and not necessarily related to skill set, and that separate that from the pay to play and the pay to win. And pay to play in that aspect is just paying to play as in the game stays alive. I mean, a lot of those games are games that are in beta phases that's the only way they make their money. And so it's kind of like if you support that game, you play it. I mean, Fortnite is the number one example of this, and it's one of the most successful games of all time. So we can't sit there and say completely entirely that pay to play is unadvantageous. It definitely works for some models, but how you introduce pay to play in there is very, very important in my opinion. Do you think there are games that really work well under a pay to play model, Kevin, or am I completely out of left field here?
Pay to play, there are some. I'd say games like Rainbow Six has done a pretty good job of it, where their model has kind of shifted, where it's kind of a hybrid between free to play and pay to play. Wherein their base game, I believe, is actually free, or maybe something like $5, and then everything else. And mind you, when this game launched 5 years ago, it was a $60 game. But the way that it's set up now is there's like a base model, and then anything else that's sort of an add-on, you can either earn by playing the game and earning the currency that way, or you can just skip ahead, get rid of the grind and time that you'll need to earn that stuff and just go ahead and buy it. It's not great, but I think it's a lot better than some other games that are doing it. Fortnite games like Fortnite and Apex, I think, are great examples of sort of, free to play, where the games themselves actually are free. And to me, that works. It's brilliant because I will buy skins or cosmetic stuff in a free game because I feel like I'm getting my value anyway. If I didn't pay anything to play it, I could spend $10-$20 or maybe even more as time goes on, because I'm not. And you kind of feel like
you kind of feel like you're doing something for the game too.
Right.
Like you're kind of being like, hey, I support these guys. Kind of like when you buy an artist's album, like you like their music, so you buy their actual album instead of just trying to, strip their music off of a YouTube video or something like that. Yeah. You're trying to actually support them. So I think it kind of really can change the way that you look at supporting games financially, and also can just in the same way as you give your dollar, you can also take it away and show your lack of confidence in a company by especially being vocal with your dollar.
Right.
But pay to play isn't the only scam in the gaming world. Loot boxes and microtransactions have become also a common complaint amongst gamers. Why is that, Bronwyn?
I think that this is in the sense where it's like you're getting a leg up on other people just by like dropping some cash on something, or like getting better weapons, getting better like tools to be able to play a certain game, and just like I think like the little microtransactions too, those things add up. Like you might think, oh, I'm just spending a couple dollars on this, but if you keep on spending a couple dollars on that, like you're just they're just sucking money out of you at that point.
Right, especially for things that, kind of, one of the things I think of is easy fatalities in Mortal Kombat. That's just something that used to take skill to do, a fatality, and they're just kind of gimmicking it by allowing you to pay for it, and so that you can do it and look cool amongst your friends. Like that's something that is a microtransaction that I think really, really bothers people. I think the other thing about loot boxes, though, is the kind of gambling aspect of it. There's especially when you get into the fact of like if you pay like $5 for a loot box and you get a randomized amount of content, and if that content actually has some kind of worth, if there's some way to trade that content, or there's some way to sell that content on eBay, however the case may be, or sell the account, then that does in essence become a form of legalized gambling in a way, doesn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. You see this all the time where people are selling Fortnite accounts or Overwatch accounts, or even, trading accounts for Madden Ultimate Team or cards for Madden Ultimate Team. And, I think Hawaii was one of the states that sort of outlawed these. And a couple countries in Europe as well that sort of outlaw these loot box systems because, in a way, they have been kind of predatory in a way, especially amongst younger players and younger audiences who are, racking up huge credit card bills on their parents' dime. Yeah, I think it's something that really needs to sort of be examined and looked at. It's something that I think legislators have no idea what they're in. They're older. They don't even understand. They still think video games are Mario and Sonic. They don't understand the complexities and sort of the actual working finances and economics that go on within video games themselves. So, I absolutely think there's some sort of gambling elements to it.
Do you think, in essence, that selling loot boxes in games, especially games that are geared towards children, promotes childhood gambling?
Yeah, I mean, if it's the same system, right? Like if I can buy it and if someone else can buy it, or even a kid can buy it, it's kids don't. There's a reason why you have to be of a certain age to gamble, right? So I don't understand. Even if there's like a hint of it, what do you do with that? I think the answers can kind of be obvious to some people when they start really diving and looking at this, like, oh, you're spending money on this and you're also losing and or making money. Well, that's technically betting.
Yeah.
And there's
Very
a
much
sense
so.
of like that gratification too, like of the rush of doing so, that like release of serotonin, that whole like developing those habits at that age. It's just like, yeah, it can snowball into something else entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, we talked a lot about pay-to-play games, but also, games like Fortnite and games like League of Legends are free to play. I can download them completely and with zero cost, except having a computer or having a console or something to play them on. Can go through and play them, and so there's an argument that could say that those games are more accessible to gamers. Do pay-to-play games create opportunities for gamers who can't afford a full game, or do they kind of, Brahman, do you think that that's actually more of an opportunity than it is a risk or a detriment?
I think that it's all about the person and how susceptible you are to advertising, to that pressure of the like shiny objects. I think it's on like a personal level, but I guess, thinking about it, I've put in a lot of time into League of Legends. I haven't put that much money into it, so I think in that sense it's good. But yeah, I think it all comes down to the person and just how aggressively they're trying to like market these different paid options. Like that's what's annoying. It's just like when you're trying to play a game, it's like, ooh, buy this, do that, like flashing screens of advertisements going on around you. Right. It's a bit much, especially if it comes to the point of like, oh, this can help your performance. Like who's not going to want to do that? Who's not going to want to like get the leg up on somebody, especially in these online scenarios when you might have like certain players harassing you, or you just really want to like show up yourself. I think that it creates this environment where you are going to want to spend money on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Kev, what do you think? Is free to play games more of a benefit because of the accessibility element of it, or is it more of a detriment because of what it does to gaming overall?
It's tough, I think, yes. I think the accessibility of it in its purest sense is right in a way. Like, anyone can really play this as long as you have sort of the systems capable of like downloading and being able to play it. The other problem is when it starts to become like Brahman was saying, where the way they're dressing it up or advertising it, or starts to become a cultural identity thing. Like I remember there were stories coming out when Fortnite was at its peak of kids being bullied because they didn't have the newest skins or something like that. So that sort of kind of harassment can incentivize children to, buying things that they can't afford, or, they obviously they're kids, that they don't need or whatever, even though the game is, like you said, free to play. So I think it's touch and go on things like that. Because like you said, in its purest form, yes, anybody can play this. Buying these cosmetic items, etc., they're not necessary for the game itself. But when you start to incentivize, I think people to in a way where they feel like they have to, I think that can kind of be slimy. But at the same time, it's like a catch-22. It's like, well, the game is free, so how do you expect them to really make money? So I think it depends how it's handled. It's definitely a tricky situation with those games.
For sure. Some people claim, due to a lot of the transactional nature that's going on in the gaming industry now, a lot of the things we're talking about, pay to win, microtransactions, loot boxes, that we receive less content overall. We receive games that are, in essence, incomplete and then sold without DLC, that many people claim was really a part of the main game in itself. To kind of hook them into buying the DLC. Is this a fair business model, Kevin? And is this kind of still in the same category of the pay-to-win stuff?
This isn't necessary. Well, I think it depends on the category. Like if it's a single-player game and there's DLC and there's like continuation of a story, or they're going to go, a spin-off of a story arc that they had, I think it all depends on what the content is, right? Like that's been the issue for years, where people are like, well, why are you selling me an incomplete game? And then others would argue that, oh no, I want more stuff because I've already beaten this game. I wanted to continue living. I want to keep playing it. So I think there's somewhat division there. I think when it becomes a problem is with games like Destiny, where the first Destiny game, a lot of people don't know this, the entire game was on the disc from the first season all the way into the last. They were just locked behind a paywall. So stuff like that, I think, is kind of it's kind of slimy and egregious, where you've already bought the entire game, but you can't access it until a year later once they release it, and you have to pay $60 again for a game that you had already paid $60 for.
Oh my God.
Bungie really sold Activision on that one.
Yeah, I remember them coming out with these big chunks of really like episodic content, and it being like a really, really big deal. Right. And I never really got far into Destiny, so I can't really talk too much about it. But right. Definitely interesting to see and hear about that.
Games like I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mass Effect 3 and how that debacle sort of spurred content.
I heard about that one
really
too.
It just pissed more people off. Yeah, that was literally an incomplete game, and then they just released DLC that was supposed to fix the problems and questions that people had, and this left people with more questions and more problems. So.
Yeah. I heard a lot about that. Anyways, Brahman, I'll toss the same question to you. Some people claim that, the transactional nature of the gaming industry, that we get these half-baked games, and they're sold incomplete. Do you think this is a fair business model for them to do? And, should this still be included in the conversation when we talk about pay-to-play, when we talk about some of the transactional nature that happens in the gaming industry?
Yeah, so I don't think that this is a fair business model, but I do think that it happens all the time. I think that we are sold incomplete games, and they're doing it intentionally. I think if you look back, before DLCs were even really a thing or a huge thing, we were getting a lot fuller games. Like you would never think, I need that DLC for Mario Sunshine. It was like, no, this game just like exists, and it's like has a full game's worth of playing in it, and that's great. And I think that now that they're like, it's so not only so common that these DLCs are offered, but so many people are buying them that they're not going to turn away the chance to make extra money, even though you've already spent so much on that game. I think that it's not fair, and the games are expensive anyways, so give us a full game. And then if we want to play more, make us a new game.
Exactly.